Hello and welcome to Armchair Equestrian. I am your host, Deshaun Halley, also known as the Average Joe, and this is James Puglisi, also known as The Pug from Pug's Thoughts in the Doghouse.
So what is the real name of the blog?
The real name of the blog is Armchair Athlete. It's actually what the real name of the blog is. I like to make up things. I sometimes forget, and
it is late at night. It is late at night.
It is true.
It is late at night.
It's almost 10:30. So yeah, but it's our Division II review with the Central Wildcats, hosted by my boy, the Pug over here. Take it away, my man.
You know, Deshaun, what I realized I realized something about myself this last year.
That you are a diehard Division II fan?
Yes. I think it was either when the Huskies took down Oregon State or Stanford. I can't remember which one. But Central was competing for a GNAC title, which we'll talk about, which is something I wasn't expecting this year.
Right.
And I was getting text messages from a bunch of Husky fans saying, "Are you watching the game? Are you watching the game?" I'm like, "No, I'm not watching the game. I'm watching Humboldt State and Western." Whoa! I was watching Humboldt State and Western Oregon instead of the Dogs because I wanted the Wildcats to win a championship.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about, you know, the lower tiered conferences in all sports. I mean, unfortunately, you know, Division I is more the
business side.
It's the business side of college football and college football in general, which it takes away from the rah-rah and, you know, the bonds that, you know, fans, you know, in neighborhoods make. And that's something, if you want to see where, you know...
Come here. Go to
It
Ellensburg.
used to be, yeah.
Come to Ellensburg.
90 minutes out of the way, man.
Yeah.
You know, you can literally go up there, go see a game, and come back and still have time.
Yeah, which is why I've actually considered getting season tickets.
I've considered.
But I can't actually do it just because of the driving and the gas prices, and also, unfortunately...
You don't have anybody living on campus anymore.
And the one guy I do know is graduating.
Right.
Yeah, so, but I really do hope next year I can go to the Western Oregon game. I've always wanted to see Central on the road, not in Seattle.
Right.
At the neutral site. I'm talking more along the lines of, you know, maybe Simon Fraser, since that's closer to or the Western Oregon game. I've always wanted to do it. But I have considered getting season tickets and doing stuff like that.
Not half bad idea.
So yeah, that's things were much better than what I thought things were going to be this year. First off, let's just recap the season. Central finished with a record of 7-5. They were 7-3 in conference play. Ended the season on a 2-game winning streak. Undefeated at home, 2-4 on the road. 2-0 in neutral sites, which we will get into later on. It was a really bizarre year. You name it, it might have happened. It might have happened.
Especially the way actually guys won the actual GNAC title. A lot of things had to fall into place.
That was okay. So for those of you who are watching this watching Central coverage for the first time, the GNAC for the football division just has 6 teams, and it was the first time that we've had 6 teams because we had a new team in Azusa Pacific. That being said, I will root for Marcus Tuiasosopo, Matt Tuiasosopo. Tyler, I hate you. The backup quarterback for Azusa Pacific, and he did incredibly well when I saw him play.
According to you, he lit it up.
Yes, he did. He did. Central still won that game. But we'll talk more about the specific as we go. So one of the things we talked about is excuse me. One of the things we talked about is how Central had a very difficult road schedule at the beginning of the year, opening up the season with 3 road games. We lost.
That was also due to the wildfires in Central.
I'm getting that.
Okay.
Actually, I'm getting that. But originally scheduled, we just had 3. We just had 3 road games, and then we were supposed to go to play against Ellensburg. So we did get, unfortunately, pounded by Texas A&M Kingsville, which I think we all were expecting. Right. I actually didn't miss this game, but I did follow it online. Everything happened. We lost 35-7. So we started out the season 0-1. Then we went up to Burnaby, British Columbia, and played the Clan.
Yes.
Cue right here.
All right. So if you guys watched our preview show, I was unaware that Simon Fraser was in fact called the Simon Fraser Clan, and when he had said this, and if you actually look at it, I kind of look at him really odd. I'm like, what?
Well, you actually were like, that's awesome.
I was shocked. I was like, oh, that's okay. All But again, Canadians, Americans, again, takes on a completely different name.
Right,
so
right.
in the outtakes, I was like, you know, when I'm thinking, you know, the Klan, I'm just imagining, you know, the football team,
the guy in the white hat,
running around with the burning cross. I mean, I know it's a bad way to look at it. I know, and you know, playing stereotypes. But again, you know, if you happen to be Joe Schmo looking up, it's like, let's see here, Simon Fraser, what's their mascot? The Klan.
Exactly.
Excuse me, what?
Exactly.
You're gonna have some questions. So
exactly.
I mean, you know, again, it takes on a completely different meaning when you go someplace else.
Well, what was funny about when you made this dance is after you made this dance, periodically I would be at work and I'm merchandise. I'm going through, you know, the owner's products and the grocery stores and that type of deal. And periodically I say, where have I heard that before? And it was, lo and behold, you're
good times.
Okay, well, thank goodness this year I'm happy to report the Klan dance was not danced. Yeah, in Simon Fraser.
That's true.
Unlike last year, Central hung on to their lead, and they won 56-28, dominating win. So they began the season 1-1. Now, this was when Joey Fogerson, a transfer from the University of Washington, began to really make a statement on, you know, being cut by the Huskies, and you know. It was a very good. It began to become a feel-good story. It was in the Daily Record a couple of times, which is the local newspaper in Ellensburg. I saw that online. So, and I bring that up because then we traveled to Western Oregon, and if it had not been for our defense and our special teams and Joey Ferguson, we do not win this game. We won 21-14 in overtime.
I actually have that on my list of key wins, ironically.
Yeah, and so we are now 2-1. I'm thinking, you know, that's huge. Finished 2-1, you know, after a tough season on the road. You know, I mean, the beginning season on the road. So we're heading home. This is good. Now let's talk about the wildfires. We had a little mini version of Hurricane Katrina, in the sense that not just the football team, but other programs like the women's soccer team ended up playing some games in Yakima, Washington, which is about 30 minutes south of Ellensburg. I don't have a source for this, but I heard a rumor that the Wildcats were practicing in North Bend to try and get.
Wow.
Now that's a rumor. That's a rumor. So it was.
Well, I mean, if it is factual, it's actually only what, like 20 or so minutes.
No. It's about
like an hour.
It's past Snoqualmie.
Okay. Well, yeah, but you have to go through North Bend to get to Ellensburg.
Yeah. So it's closer to Seattle than it is Ellensburg. So it's more like an hour and 10-20 minutes. Yeah. So. At the last second, and this was cool in the sense that that it was kind of like having a mini version of our Seattle game that we used to have, which we didn't have anymore. Well, the athletic department got on the phone and began making calls because the athletic director said he didn't want to put any players or fans or students in danger with the bad air quality because of the fires. So they called up. And Bothell High School hosted the next two games.
No way! Wow, they were that close. I could have went to a game then.
Yeah,
Jeez, how was that not reported in the Seattle Times?
It was, but it got that much coverage.
Oh, that's why. I'm like,
that much fun.
If I had seen it, I totally would have been like, all right, it looks cool.
I think I invited you to one of those.
Oh, did you?
And then I think you said.
I think I was doing Tommy, probably.
Maybe. But so the first game is. So technically it's a neutral site game, so we're still on the road.
Right.
All right. So now our road trip is now expanded from 3 to 4 games. So we play Azusa Pacific, the Cougars, and that's when I found out that the backup quarterback for Azusa Pacific was Tyler Tuiasosopo. And what was funny about this kind of a side story is we got programs. My girlfriend and I got programs. We went through the rosters. We thought, whoa, Tuiasosopo, you know. Well, when he started playing, you know how they had the PA announcer, you know, Tuiasosopo, the ball carrier, you know.
Yeah.
The guy behind us, it said, Tuiasosopo, wait a minute. He goes, nope! You know, I mean, I don't want to say what he said, but it was really funny to get, and it wasn't just him. It was a good, you know, 10 people in the stands behind us saying, "Oh my goodness, it's a Tuiasosopo." And for those of you who don't know, the reason why the name Tuiasosopo is so big is because he's a huge name with the University of Washington and just around this area in general. You know, going.
So you got Silva family spreads all the way through. Actually, it's a very common name, but ironically, they're all related.
And what's very unfortunate is you have the Teo story.
Yes,
Tuiasosopo,
that's right.
Also linked. But then to kind of give you an idea of how big the name Tuiasosopo is. So, but Central ended up winning that game, and you know it's fun to see 41. So now we're 3-1. So now it's time to go home, right?
Wrong.
Can't do it. So we have. So they didn't know what they were going to do. They called Valpo High School up again. Boom. We're playing another game in Pop City Stadium. All right, that's cool. Well. Not only are we hosting Humboldt, and people, you know, Humboldt at the time was ranked 8th in the coaches poll, and 16th in the D2Football.com poll, the two big polls, or vice versa. Either way, we're playing the 8th team in the nation.
Right.
Going into the game, the week before, not only are we playing in another neutral site, our road trip is expanded from 3 to 5 games now. Joey Fogerson, the transfer from the University of Washington, got kicked out of the school. For, unfortunately, he got into trouble, from what I was told, he got into trouble the same way he did with UW. He was at the gym, or he was at a place on campus, somebody dropped the N-word, and he took offense to it, he punched the kid in the mouth. So...
You know, that it's really unfortunate for that to happen to any player. I mean, you know, people in public, watch your mouths. Let's just be real about it. I mean, you know, again, nobody deserves to, you know, be called any sort of racial slur. I mean, unfortunately, we do it every day, and especially with the N-word. You know, black people, we say it all the time. If you don't want to be called it, don't say it. Plain and simple. I mean, that's really the best rule of thumb. I mean, but also again, and it's still unfortunate that, you know, that word brings about so much anger that, you know, it causes a person to lose their cool. I mean, unfortunately...
Well, the fact that he's done it twice,
and I mean, I don't know if it was a ploy. It could, you know, again, there's many facets that haven't necessarily been discussed. I just wish that he would have kept himself more centered and saying, you know what, watch your mouth, you know, and walked away from it. That way... Or if at least he had said that first, and the person kept on, and then he punched the guy in the mouth, at least he would then have the leg to stand and say, hey, I told him to stop first, you know, basically fire a warning shot, gave him a warning, and he said it again, so I punched him in the mouth. You know, but when you just fly off the handle, that hurts. You know, that hurts the team.
That school,
hurts the school. You know, it makes everybody look bad. Plus, it hurts the draft stock. I mean.
Yeah, well, not only with his draft stock being, if you want to talk draft stock, here's a guy who went from Division 1 to Division 2. The one thing that I do not understand about the N-word, though, is that, like, somebody, I was having this conversation with, not Christian Jin, but Christian Phillips, and I said, I don't understand, you know, why can't, you know, white people use the word, and he said, well, that would be like me calling you white trash. And I looked at him and I said, you call me white trash, I don't care.
Exactly.
You know, it doesn't hurt me.
It's comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it's one of those things where actually Michael Wilbon has said it, and I want to say Stephen A. Smith has been one to say
on
it
ESPN.
Both on ESPN. They said it in multi different facets, but basically, you only give the word. The word is only as powerful as you give it. So in the sense of, if you choose to just be neutral and go, you know, I really wish you wouldn't call me that, and walk away from it, suddenly it loses a whole lot of its luster. It becomes no point to say. You know, whereas if you get irate about it and fly off the handle, now you've given it more than what is deemed necessary. I mean, you know, and again, if you don't want to be called it, don't say it yourself.
Right.
I make it a point to not really say it unless I'm talking about men's room black. But that's just
yeah. That's not good.
But I mean, it's a word that's a very, it's a very powerful word. Again, if you give it the opportunity for it to be that way, you know, and unfortunately, it's a word that's documented historically too.
Right.
You know, and it's one of those things where you read a history book, you read about civil rights movement. That word is in every single book. You know, I mean, again, and it should be because it's a sign of the time.
Right.
You know, it's not something, it's not something, you don't need to take the N-word out of every historic book, blah, 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 blah,
like
blah.
the whole issue with Huckleberry Finn. I mean, there's people who wanted to edit it out.
I was like, that was his name.
Yeah.
It's part of the book. I'm not going to say, because again, you change somebody's writing, that's just wrong.
Right. Well, so with that whole situation going around the team with Central, they go into Humboldt State.
Going right into Humboldt State.
Yeah. So they played their second game in Bothell. I was able to go to this game as well. Central just completely dominated, and it was not the Humboldt team that I had seen the year before. And more on them a little later. So they ended up winning and at that point, they won by a score of 31-3. So so at that point, they began to get into the conversation of the regional poll. Humboldt dropped big time out of the ranking and that type of deal. So things were looking really promising because at that point we're 4-1, and we're 2 wins away from having a winning season. And remember, I said my expectation was just have a winning season, right? So things are looking pretty good right now. Do we get to go home? No, we get to go on the road to St. George, Utah, and play the Dixie.
So we're at game 6 away, basically.
Yeah. So this, I don't really want to. Oh, correction. Humboldt State was ranked 9th instead of 8th. Excuse me. I don't want to put the road trip as an excuse because Dixie State is. They're like how we talked about in terms of new teams entering conferences. They're still trying to get up there, and they ended up finishing in last place of the Great Northwest Athletic Conference. But the Wildcats are up, and just the Red Storm just kept slowly but surely coming back. And trying to listen to that game-winning drive online, it was painful.
I bet.
Because it wasn't painful in the sense that, oh my God, we're losing to Dixie State, this could be the first time we lose to them in school's history, that type of deal. Because, those types of stats, I never really think about when the game is going to happen because you're not going to win every single game.
Right, exactly.
Opponents. But it was like, okay, we got first down, we got second down. Okay, third and long, third. It didn't matter if it's third and long, mid-third, or third and short. They could not stop the Red Storm. They were clicking. And our quarterback unfortunately froze in the clutch, as well as the rest of the offensive unit. More on the quarterback later. And we ended up losing to Dixie State for the first time in school's history. So we ended up losing 29-21.
That's still, again, losing by 8. That's not a bad way.
It's not a bad way to lose, but it's at the same time. With the way the GNAC is now, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, when you look at the GNAC, you look at Dixie State and Simon Fraser as 2 wins.
Right.
And
again, looks good on paper.
Yeah, I know. That's fair. Anyway, but I do think that 6th game, if you're a player and you already opened up the season, you haven't played at home
yet
at all.
You haven't had a chance to sleep in your own dorm room.
Yeah.
I'm sure these guys for literally the Monday through Friday, it's okay, or actually Monday through Thursday, if it's an away game, you generally leave on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And so it's Monday through Thursday is they're at school, and all of a sudden Thursday night comes around, they got to get back on a bus.
Yeah.
And travel to wherever it is, because in Division II, there's not a lot of games where they fly. It's a lot of
bus.
A lot of busing it. So
yeah, a lot of everybody talks about the 16-hour bus ride to Arcata, California to play Humboldt. That just shows you how long the
and that's it's just the way it works.
Yeah, and so, but after that loss, do we get to go home?
No.
Yes.
Oh, you do.
We get to go home.
Hey!
I know what was great about this game. We got to go home just in time for homecoming.
Yay!
So our first game was our homecoming.
Okay.
And
it truly is a homecoming.
Yeah, exactly. So we played the Clan and took care of business, 51-10. So just, it was, I watched that game online, and it just seemed like everybody, including the announcers who I do know, Rob Lowry and Dave Haberlow, former Mariner actually. They just kind of had the entire crowd and the coaches
just relieved.
We're
at home.
Yeah, and you just got that vibe. So now we are 5-2. So thinking, okay, 1 win away from the next, from the winning season. So now we have another brutal schedule, part of the schedule. We have to go down to Glendora, California, and Humboldt State, so 2 road games. we ended up losing to the Cougars.
Ah.
Yeah, so this is a team that I expected to finish in last place, and they beat us. They ended up, Azusa Pacific ended up finishing as the hottest GNAC school, because they started the year 0-6, and then they won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
So I got to give them props. It was just, that one really hurt.
That one definitely
Because again, it's a new team. I saw them win against, in Bothell, when the
Yeah.
when the
And
conditions
again,
were
your
odd,
division is very unique, whereas everybody plays each other twice, so everybody gets a home at home. It's
Right.
not something you see in Division One. Everyone generally just plays each other one time, and then if there's a conference championship, you may play one of the teams you played early in the season a second time.
Right. So that one did not sting as much as the next loss. We did lose to Humboldt 14-10 on the road. So
I remember that text message. It was in all caps. You were not a happy person.
No. Well, part of
that, I'm like, how do you lose to Humboldt State, man?
Well,
I mean, every game I saw Central play against Humboldt State,
they were lucky enough to get in the red zone.
Exactly. It was like absolute stoppification. I'm like, all right, cool. Them and St. Cloud State.
That was back when we were in the North Central Conference.
Right.
Yeah. But so, but at this point, I think every single Wildcat fan was panicking, because at this point we are 5-4.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 games left, and at least the first game against Western Oregon, that's still a toss-up game, because Western Oregon is very competitive. We only won in overtime.
Right.
So we did win, and so now we clinched the winning. Now we clinched the winning season. So people can relax. Okay, winning season. People are starting to think that Wildcats are all about progression. Remember we talked about Steve Sarkisian and the Huskies. So, okay, we showed some progression. We got one more win. We're not stuck in neutral. This is good. Okay, so now since we have that winning season, let's see what we can do in terms of the GNAC title. Mm-hmm. There was a bizarre finish.
Please explain, because you explained this to me on the phone, and I'm going, it was basically everything that could go wrong went wrong, or went right.
Yeah. Okay, so the GNAC, again, has 6 teams now. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, since Central and Humboldt split the season series, they were actually tied going into the final week of the season. So, if they both win, they're both co-champions.
Right.
Okay? That makes sense. If one of them won, one of them lost,
that person is a champion.
Yeah, the other team's a champion. Here's the tricky part. If they both lost, then Western Oregon would have tied Humboldt and Central, because Western Oregon was playing Humboldt in the last game of the season, compared to Central playing Dixie State.
Right.
So you could have had tri-champions.
Yeah.
How does
that is something that does not happen.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I can think of a tri-champion was when in the 2000 season, when you had Oregon State, Washington, and Oregon. I think all finished with records of 10-1, but it was something like the Huskies beat Oregon State beat Oregon, Oregon beat Washington, and somehow Washington got into the Rose Bowl.
Right.
I don't know how they did it, but somehow they got the tiebreaker. So, luckily, that did not happen. Central took care of business by winning 51-19, which gave them 3 victories where they scored over 50 points. And that was the day where I was watching Western Oregon and Humboldt State, rooting for Western Oregon. And the one thing that was really cool about Western Oregon beating Humboldt State, not just for the championship's sake, is that they never gave up.
Right.
I mean, they were announcing the scores even with the broadcasting, and I don't know if the players weren't paying attention to it or if they wanted to, being senior day and that type of deal. But it was just it was more like, oh, Central won. Okay, let's still take them out.
Let's still take them out.
And I give them a lot of claps for that. And Humboldt, and not to take anything away from Humboldt. Humboldt didn't quit either. So.
Well, when you know you got a championship on the line, you're going to go out there and you're going to play.
Right. And so Central ends up winning the GNAC championship. Our drought's over. Our 1-year drought.
1-year drought.
So Central finished in first, Humboldt in the second, Western Oregon in third. Simon Fraser moved up a little bit to fourth. Azusa Pacific did not finish in last place. I had them finish last place. They finished fifth, and Dixie State finished in last. Now, the thing that was very interesting about this year is that there was a pile of parity in this conference.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I mean, you got to go back to pre-Mike Riley days, like my freshman year, where there was a ton of parity like this. And so the question I have going into next season, does the GNAC having this much parity, does that hurt the conference in terms of national recognition, regional rankings, playoff berths, and that whole type of deal?
Parity is that's what actually most sports are kind of based on. 'Cause, I mean, everybody wants to be the same and figure out and do the same things that everyone else is doing to win. You just got to have that one extra thing that somebody else doesn't have. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it can be good, and yeah, it can over dilute the league. But I actually don't see any problem with parity. I mean, for example, let's look at the San Antonio Spurs. What's the one thing they're really good at? Fundamental basketball. They play defense. And they play very, very well. People think it's boring, but it gets the job done. And you have to do what you need to do to get said job done. Is it boring? Yes. But again, you got to go with what works. And again, next season, anything can happen, as has been proven in the GNAC. Anything and everything can happen. So I mean, it just all depends. I don't think it's going to be a bad thing nationally. So I mean, I think you guys should be okay.
Well, for the national sake, I mean, we still have to wait for Azusa Pacific to be one more year for them
to be eligible.
For them to be eligible. But I actually think this actually hurts the I think parity is good for competition, for what you're saying, which is fine, and it also shows that we kind of have that NFC West type of feel that it used to have, where the division would stink outside, but within the division we would beat each other up. And so I think it creates more rivalries. I think it creates more competition. I mean, a couple years ago, you couldn't say Humboldt State was any good.
Right.
So I think it's good in that type of deal, but from the national level, I don't think it is a good thing, because what's going to end up happening is, I mean, heck, look at Humboldt State. Let's just hypothetically say that they lost 2 games instead of 1. They probably still wouldn't go to the D2 playoffs because of those 2 losses.
Right.
And I think that might hurt the GNAC unless they redo the region, or unless we can get some more teams. I'm still kind of hoping that we get maybe a junior college that makes the jump from the NAIA to Division II.
Yeah.
Eastern and Southern Oregon have always been rumored to do that, as well as Grand Valley State and Arizona. But that's always been a rumor. But it's because of, we're not tucked away in the Great Northwest, because we got some California teams.
Yeah.
But I still think that, if the GNAC champion finishes, like for Central's case, finishes with a 7-4 record, because of all the parity, the national writer is going to say, oh, well, they lost 4 games. This team over here in the Lone Star Conference, or the MIAA, or some East Coast, they lost 1 game. Therefore, that school.
Well, I mean, you're always going to have writers going to feel that way. They go, well, 1 lost team looks better than 4 lost team in a slightly tougher conference. I mean, that's just writers are always going to be that way, because I mean, you see that in Division I all the time.
That is true. That is true. But I think it's something that we can look at next year.
Definitely.
I think next year, it's not a given that Central will win the GNAC. But I think this conference will be a toss-up between Central, Humboldt, and West. I don't know when Western Oregon's going to get over the hump.
It's all in a matter of time.
Yeah, but they've always been there. See, that's the thing. Like for years, it was. But even back when Washington had a football team, it was between Central. Western Oregon would be the one team that would give us a run for our money, and we usually would take care of business.
Right.
And now you have Humboldt all of a sudden coming up, and Western Oregon is still in neutral, and it's just they're a team that you have to watch out for, but for some odd reason they just can't seem to
get over the hump. They continue to choke it a lot.
I mean, they're one of the not this last year, but the year before, when Humboldt and Western faced each other at the end of the season, I was pulling for Western Oregon. Excuse me. I was pulling for Western Oregon just because I knew that Western Oregon had always been so close. Whereas in, and plus the assistant athletic director / director of media relations, who I did work with when I was at Central, is a grad from WOU.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that too. So Next up, now this next conversation is incredibly hard to talk about because this is probably the last player I have a tie to.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Robertson, the quarterback.
Right.
Now, funny,
he's a senior.
And he's graduating.
Right.
Now, what is very funny is this guy actually has a tie to somebody we know. Don Sabo's wife taught him.
No way!
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
man.
Don Sabo is Husky legend in the Husky Band, for those of you who do not know.
He's awesome.
Yes.
Love that man.
Yes, very passionate about the band.
Very passionate. Oh, my gosh.
Well, actually, and it was funny, I was telling him, when I was saying I went to Central, his wife said, is Ryan Robertson still playing quarterback? And I said, you like Ryan Robertson? Because we're going to talk about, his play. And he was like, he's so nice and everything. And I said, there's a lot of alumni that don't want Robertson as the quarterback because he's not Mike Riley, which isn't fair.
You can't say, well, we want Mike Riley back. Well, he graduated.
Yeah, right. And Mike Riley's a legend.
Yeah.
When you
it's him and I want to say
Kitna.
Yeah, John Kitna.
Yeah, John Kitna.
Give both the statue. All right.
Actually, also, we do have to give props to Adam Bighill, a linebacker who is tearing it up for the BC Lions in the CFL.
Oh, nice.
So I'm hoping that maybe he makes the jump to the NFL. Mm-hmm. But he just signed a big-time contract with the Lions. So
all right. Nothing wrong with that. It's still fun. I don't know why players think that going to the CFL is like a step down. I mean, yeah, it's third-tier football, but you're still getting paid, man.
Well, yeah. Well, it's like how Robin Williams says in his comedy routine. You have a longer field and a wider field with a bunch of extra, with the goalposts, up the goal line. Go enjoy.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, so let's talk about Ryan Robertson. Now, when he first came and he was the starter, he unfortunately got benched, and that was the year we were ranked #1 in the country. That was a quarterback controversy.
Right.
And Cole Morgan, high school, Ballard High School graduate of that state team in 03, he took over. Now, the thing that's unique about Robertson is that he probably won a little bit more compared to... No, actually, I don't want to say that. He won more conference titles than Mike Riley.
Right.
He did not... He did not win as many games as Mike Riley, but he was a part of 3 conference championship teams. One, he did lose the starting job. Mike Riley won 2. Also, he was a good runner. He didn't play very well under pressure, which is why I think a lot of people had issues with him.
Yeah.
And another thing that was very puzzling was he got hurt 2 years ago, was replaced with a backup, and the backup was putting up better numbers than him. So my question is, for you, how do we judge this guy? Because I don't really know how to. Because
you can't judge him by his wins and losses. You can't judge him by his stats. I mean,
well, because he won more conference titles.
Exactly.
I mean,
and really, at the end of the day, that's what counts.
Yeah.
Did you win the championships? Yes, he did. I mean, he won 3 to Mike Riley's 2. So I mean, now you're pulling hairs on this one. I mean, neither one of them had the greatest playoff success.
Well, Mike Riley had more playoff success than Robertson because Riley actually won some games.
Right.
Compared to Robertson, Riley won 2 games. Robertson did not play in the playoff games back in 2009. That was Cole Morgan.
Right.
But Riley has more playoff wins than
so I mean,
more playoff
there's that, and I mean, there's also the overall likability. I mean, I think as a whole, you can put Robertson up as one of the good quarterbacks that has come out of the university. I mean, I don't know if Central does a Wildcat legends like they do in Husky Stadium. They have Husky legends. They bring back a certain player from a certain era and so on and so forth. So I mean, when they speak of things like that, his name will probably be in that moderate echelon of people. I mean, is he going to get a statue of himself on campus?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So I mean, it's
right.
I would just put him at perfectly average, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, here's how I view Ryan Robertson, and I met the guy. Yeah, I've interviewed him, and I think that
he sounds like he's very, very, very nice.
Yeah, he's very down to earth, according to Don Sable. So he's a very sweet kid. I I view him like Jose Lopez on the Mariners when he was getting ready to leave. Mm-hmm. I thank you for your time. I saw the work ethic. I saw your effort. You gave it your all, but it's time for a change.
Right.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And another thing that you have to take into account, as you said, comparing apples to oranges with him and Mike Riley, or actually what we talked about previewing the Seattle Seahawks. Mm-hmm. It's very hard when you have the quarterback. Yeah. The God-sent quarterback.
As the man.
Yeah, and then the man leaves. The person coming in is going to...
Yeah, it's going to suffer.
Yeah, and while Robertson was playing with Central, I tried to back him up. Mm-hmm. It's just, there were just some times where you just knew he wasn't going to get it done. And one of the games was the Dixie State game, okay? He needs to get us into this position to just score, mm-hmm. Just to stop the bleeding because Dixie State's on fire.
Yeah.
And he would freeze in the pocket. That's the thing that really stood out about him, mm-hmm. is that when it came time to make a play and get the ball down the field, he would hold on to the ball too long.
So what
does that sound like?
Sounds like Motley Jake.
Or Keith Price.
Or Keith Price too.
But
that too. But so basically what you're saying is he lacked that killer quarterback instinct.
Yeah. The guy could run though. If he saw an opening for a first down, he would take it.
Yeah.
That's fine. And what's interesting is when he would take it, he wouldn't go around. He'd go right up the gut.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
That's ballsy.
Yeah, but he always slides feet first. But when it came time to make a play, 50% of the time he would freeze, and that's the reason why I think it's okay. It's now time to
go in a completely different direction.
And thank you. Yeah, and I thank you for his time. I do. And the fact that you were a part of 3 conference championship teams, one year you were pulled as the starter. That's fine. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that year because number 1, your best game was against West Texas A&M, and number 2, we were ranked number 1 that year, and you were a freshman.
Yeah.
So. Again, it's time for a change of quarterback.
Yeah.
It really is. Now, let's talk a little about this small thing that came up. This little tweet, something we call Twitter. We get to talk Twitter.
Oh, on Twitter.
Yes, Twitter.
Ironically, I am on Twitter.
Really? Yeah. You said you were not on Twitter last time we spoke.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. KB69.
KB69.
It was my moniker. I'm going to actually bring up another. I'm actually going to do a new Twitter account. It'll probably be Fondue Master or something.
Fondue Master.
Yes, whatever.
Named after the fantasy baseball. You were incredibly successful in fantasy sports this last year. You won a baseball championship. You got your trophy right here.
Yeah, I know, man. I feel really good about myself. Thanks for Fondue Masters.
So, Tim Booth, a graduate from Central, actually, a member of the Associated Press, I heard tweeted that head coach Blaine Bennett had accepted an interview for a coaching position at the University of Idaho. I don't know how I feel about this.
Well, the big leagues are calling.
The big leagues are calling. It's just...
And Idaho is like... Idaho's one of those schools where it's like, all right, it's more like you just got called to AAA.
True.
And actually, I've actually heard rumors that Idaho might be jumping down to Division II, or at least to FCS. Mm-hmm. So it's just because they can't. The Kibbe Dome only holds. I think it holds the bare minimum for Division I FCS. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, FBS. So it barely holds that. So it's one of those things where it's costing them more money to actually to keep themselves afloat than it would to take a step down and go to a smaller conference.
Well, the thing that I am nervous about in this regard is now, granted, I understand there's a lot of rah-rah in sports. Oh, I'm happy to be here because this is a great opportunity, which could mean anything. It could mean that you took more money. It means you're comfortable in this area. It could mean a pile of things. Blaine Bennett's father coached in Ellensburg in the high school. So when he was hired, it was like he was coming home, and that's fine. But at the same time, he's been here for sorry. I'm drawing a blank. About 5 years.
Yeah.
And all he's done is won, which is fine.
Yeah.
I can't fault him for that, but you really are going to go 5 years and leave?
I give him credit for staying for 5 years, to be perfectly honest with you, because in Division I, coaches generally don't even stay that long. Like, especially if you're at, like, you know, say in Idaho or Hawaii, for example. You have 2 or 3 good seasons, you know, the big teams from the power conferences are calling you to get you out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and even though you may not be successful, the purpose is that the little team will always stay the little team. They don't want Hawaii to become a big school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't want to have to lose recruits. Say, hey, come play in Hawaii. Guess what? We got hot chicks and it's on the beach. That's a big recruiting tool.
Yeah, well, here's my thing though about a coach leaving after 5 years. Now, if I understand why coaches do it, and I also
is being rewarded for winning.
Yes, and I also will give him. I'm not gonna. If he does leave, I don't know if he is going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't know if he is going to leave. I just want to reiterate that because I don't want tweets and stuff like that. But if he is going to leave Central, I feel that's kind of a slap in the face in this regard. We have coaches throughout the athletic department who have been here for 10, 15, 20 years. Now, and that's the cool thing about Division II sports is you see coaches who are there. And one of the reasons why is actually because I've had this conversation with several Central coaches when I was on the radio, saying how if they went to D1, then that's a 3-year plan.
Yeah.
If you're not winning after 3 years, go find another job.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think of Blaine Bennett leaving, he's struggling, but you know what? The volleyball team has struggled. The women's basketball team, okay, that might be a bad example because they just got a new coach, but that former coach Jeff Whitney was there for over 15 years and was a part of winning and losing teams.
Yeah.
You got Coach Greg Sparling, the men's basketball team, who's been there over many years, and he's had ups and downs. And Coach Mario Andaya from the volleyball team. And my question would be, Blaine, overall, you're a great coach. You're a great guy. I've interviewed you on the radio. You have gotten stuff done. For the most part, you've been competitive. You had that one bizarre year 2 years ago. Why not stay?
And you probably say it's a really, really good question. Mm-hmm. But again, everybody, despite the fact that coaches do stay in Division II and Division III a whole lot longer at the same position, there is still that, hey, maybe a small Division I school is going to give me a shot. That's why actually, if the rumors are true, and he did accept, at least an interview with the University of Idaho, it's still worth it. And if he chooses to take it, it's the perfect place for him to do it. It's small enough that he can still do a 3 to 5 year plan, with his recruits. Because again, Idaho not the biggest powerhouse school on the face of the planet. It's just not. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's really been considered, the northern Siberia of Division I football.
Right.
I mean, because people go Idaho, whatever. I mean, Akey, who was the previous coach there, he might still be now, I'm not sure, but he took a very mediocre Idaho team and actually made them very, very good. Mike Ipati came from Idaho. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and he's gone on to do great things in professional football. So, I mean, it's, a lot of it is, it's a great springboard school to possibly, go to a different place, go to an even bigger school.
Mm-hmm. The only question I would have is, in terms of, this would actually be, another time where he has tried, Blaine Bennett has tried the Division I route. Mm-hmm. He's been a quarterbacks coach at Purdue. One of his students, Kyle Wharton. Yes. And he was I can't remember if he was a coordinator or a coach or what have you, but he had ties to Wazoo. Mm-hmm. And there was also one other school in Division I that I can't remember at this time. But he has experience at the Division I level.
As a coordinator.
That is true.
I mean, it's one thing to be a coordinator. It's something completely different to actually finally become the coach. Every coordinator that's on every single team, the ultimate goal is to become a head coach.
Sure.
I mean, you know, and again, some people are just really, really good coordinators. Gilbertson, and he stated that. He's like, I just want to be a coordinator. I don't want to be a head coach. And they made him head coach anyway. But that's another story for another time. But, I mean, you know, and some people are able to actually, in fact, make, you know, that jump. A lot of it has to do with, you know, where you were a coordinator, who you know, and it's not, never so much based on how much you know about said game of football. Mm-hmm. Lane Kiffin is the coach of USC. I'm sorry, he knows jack about football, in my opinion.
I'll conclude with this. If Blaine Bennett does leave, or whenever he leaves, or what have you, I don't fault him.
No.
Because I don't fault Bo Baldwin for leaving Central and coaching up at Eastern and winning a national title.
Right.
I don't fault him, and that's one of the things that's very difficult about being a Division II fan, because we are. It's like a minor league team.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just.
But you also get the satisfaction of saying, hey, I knew him when.
That is true.
You know, so yeah. I mean, there is that. And there's something that you can in fact take great pride in.
Yes.
You know, I mean, in Division I, you don't get that. You really don't.
And it also would be a completely different situation if Blaine Bennett was constantly losing.
Right.
You know, I mean, he came in 2008 and won the GNAC title in 08, 09, 10, and last year. So that's 4 titles.
Yeah.
I mean,
the credentials say he's ready for the next level.
Yeah. I mean,
and I mean,
regardless of how weak or how strong the conference is.
Yeah.
You know,
winning titles is winning titles, and probably, you know, he's probably been on the radar for quite some time. You know, it's all about finding the right place.
Yeah, there was a rumor actually a couple during the Wildcats #1, and this is just a rumor. There wasn't a source that Portland State was trying to get him. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you know, there you go.
So yeah, I mean, so it's obviously if it's big enough to be a rumor, then you know that somebody is in fact on the radar. So I mean, there's potential that he could be the future. You know, not necessarily the future of Idaho football, but you know, the future in Division I as coach.
So for next year's expectations for Central, I have win 8 games again with the whole
progression.
Repeat as GNAC champs. It's our conference to lose, as strange as it was.
Yeah.
It's our conference to lose. But I say we watch out for Western Oregon and Humboldt State, like I've said before. And the win games that I think that we're supposed to, which is the 2 games against Simon Fraser and the games against Dixie State and Azusa Pacific at home. Hopefully they'll be at home.
Yeah.
And now the toss-up games, I got to say, are Dixie State and Azusa Pacific on the road. I think that
actually that Central on the road that's going to be key. If they can win more games on the road, just like with the Dogs, if they got to win a few more games on the road. Now they've been proven to be road warriors, but true road games, not
neutral site.
Yes.
Well, and another thing also too is the Red Bull in Arcadia, California, with Humboldt is starting to become a tough place to play, which was never a tough place to play. You know, but we've seen throughout the last few years we haven't won a game there in 4 years.
Yeah.
So I mean
I'm
gonna put that down as a loss for next year, because until we win there again. You know, I'm sorry. You know, Humboldt can't play in Ellensburg right now. We can't play in Arcata. So,
okay.
All right. So there you go.
All right, that was our Division II review. Thank you, the Pug. I appreciate that. So I was hear a little bit about Division II. We're gonna take another quick break here. We're gonna get back into the NFL here in just a second.